Hello guys, welcome to Settling in Australia. My name is Kwame. There's news circulating everywhere in regards to students' visa refusal rates. Yes guys, so the student visa refusal rate has risen to a stunning 20% in 2024. So this basically means that out of every 5 student visas that are being submitted to the Home Affairs, 1 visa is being rejected. Why are they doing this? I know they are doing this because they want to bring the migration intake down to a stunning level, and they've also introduced something called the GST, Genuine Student Test, and I'm basically sure that Home Affairs is basically declining a lot of visas based on the GST. So from this visa refusal, this has also created a lot of panics in most of the colleges and universities in Australia, and most of these colleges are now basically cancelling a lot of COEs from students that haven't got their student visas yet because they don't want to be penalized from the Department of Home Affairs. Most institutions have also decided to stop the intake of some students' visa applications from some offshore countries. We're going to do that deep dive, and others have also targeted to hold the visa applications to some specific countries. But before we do this deep dive, please know that I'm not a migration agent, so please use any advice in this video as general advice only. Let's go and do this deep dive. Okay guys, so this article was published by the iChef Monitor, so monitor.ichef.com, and it was published on the 14th of February 2024. Australia, visa rejection rate spikes as some institutions withdraw admission offers under the new migration settings. So some of the institutions in Australia are basically telling students they cannot move forward with their application, and they are now taking away the COE, which is the confirmation of enrollment. Why? Because immigration is basically rejecting visas. So when it comes to student visas, the rejection rate has now spiked to 20%. So let's quickly read the highlights. Students applying for Australian study visas are facing a sharp uptick in rejection rates under the new Genuine Student Test. So as you guys are aware, in December last year, Home Affairs basically introduced something called the GST. The GST stands for the Genuine Student Test. So before your student visa is approved, you have to go through a testing called the Genuine Student Test, where they are going to test if you are actually a genuine student coming to Australia to study and nothing else. So I think they are refusing a lot of students based on this Genuine Student Test criteria. Some institutions and schools are scrambling to improve their risk rating as assessed by the Australian government. This has led some providers to resign admission offers to students who are expected to have a low likelihood of obtaining a student visa under the new rules. So I did a video. I'm going to leave a link to that video at the top and also the description section below. Go and read for those that understand this market. So when it comes to institutions that accept international students to come study, immigration has basically given out levels: level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 1 being the highest. They have a criteria they use to determine. So if you're an institution and you have like a good track of students, you don't have any problems with students are not canceling their visas application with this sort of college or university, then you'll be ranked as level 1. And also when it comes to countries that are thinking of migrating to Australia to study, they've given rankings to countries. I am from Ghana. We are basically level 3. Yeah, so if you're a level 3 country and you want to study in Australia, then it's best you match with a level 1 college. If you're a level 3 and you target like a level 3 institution, then it's going to raise a red flag, and you also need to provide more documents. So this is basically what most of the colleges are doing. They don't want to destroy their reputation by having a high refusal in regards to students that wants to come and study in their colleges. So before they get like a visa refusal, they are basically telling the students to withdraw the application, and they are giving out refunds to these students so this doesn't ruin their reputation. I'm not going to go through all that. I'm just going to read the highlights. Okay, so more than a third of South Asian students refused. Wow, this is sad. As many as 1 in 5 international students had their visa application rejected in the last 2 quarters of 2023, rising to more than a third of Pakistani and Indian applicants and over half of Nepalese students. Wow. Wow. So it seems they are targeting students from South Asia. Australia is on track for a steep fall in the net migration after federal officials turned away thousands of overseas students who applied to start courses this month, bringing student visa grants down by 20% in the biggest shift in 2 decades. So student visa refusals going up as high as 20% has never happened before in the last 20 years, and it's happening in 2024. So this was reported by the Sydney Morning Herald. The cut to the education program is the biggest single factor in driving the total migrant intake down to 375,000 this financial year and putting in on course for 250,000 the following year. So as this article is basically stating, they are trying to bring the intake of migrants down, and they've started this year. So the intake, they are not trying to go over 375,000 people of migrants coming into Australia this year, and next year, okay, they are going to stick to 250,000 in 2025. Under Australia's new migration settings, prospective students must now prove a higher level of savings and a higher level of English proficiency and must pass this genuine student test. Did you guys see that? Yeah, so you must prove a higher level of savings before you get a visa grant. You have to prove that you have enough funds to be able to pay your uni fees. You have enough funds for you to be able to live comfortably in Australia. You also need to show that you have a high score in your English test. So let's say if you go for the IELTS, you need to show that you have a high score in the IELTS, and you must also pass the new genuine student test. But there are complaints that there is a lack of transparency regarding exactly why one's visa is refused and other accepted. Home Affairs is basically not giving out clear reason as to why granting student visa to, let's say, student A, and they are also refusing the student visa to student B. They've not publicly shown out any reason or transparent reason as to why they are refusing this many visas. I am not saying this article is saying this. Okay, so I'm not going to read everything, but when we come to the table here, so this is basically Australia's top 10 student source markets from 2019 to 2023. So when we say international students in Australia, these are our top market. So you have a lot of people from China. So China is obviously number one. So in 2019, they had 207,854 students, international students that came to Australia to study. Okay, so number one is China, two is India, Nepal, Colombia, Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand, Brazil, Pakistan, Indonesia, and others. So when you say other, I'm from Ghana, so Ghana, Nigeria, and the rest. So these are like our biggest market, and now they are targeting to reduce the volumes of South Asian students. So I think India, Pakistani, Nepal, and the rest, they are all going to be affected. Now, institutions scramble to avoid being penalized, and that's what I was trying to say. So institutions are now basically canceling the COE of students. So if you've not got your visa granted yet, they are basically sending you a letter to cancel your COE, and I think there's an example here. So some universities rescinding offers of enrollments. Concern about potential visa refusal has reached such a level that at least two universities, the University of Wollongong and La Trobe University, have withdrawn confirmation of enrollment to students they feared would not have their visas approved. On such withdrawal of acceptance from the University of Wollongong was obtained by the Koala News, and it is followed the university having asked the students to withdraw or defer their offer. So the University of Wollongong and basically La Trobe University are basically cancelling the COE of students. So you have a clear letter, sample letter from here. So this is really serious. Also, other institutions responding by narrowing down source countries. Meanwhile, another international school has chosen to limit countries from which it will accept application in the bid to increase visa approval rate, indicating a letter obtained by the ICEF monitored that school will not be accepting offshore applicants from the following countries. Wow, so this has gotten worse. So some institutions in Australia have basically come to a conclusion that if you are not part of this country, they are not going to accept any student visa application offshore if you are not part of this country. So if you are not from any of the European countries, you are not from Brazil, Argentina, South Korea, Japan, Canada, USA, UK, Taiwan, Mexico, Fiji, Papua New Guinea, and you apply for your student visa and you live offshore, they are not going to process your application. But if you are living onshore, then they will process your application. So some of the universities and colleges have basically come to this conclusion so they don't get penalized for having a high rate of visa refusal. And yet, another private provider with multiple locations in Australia has cited low visa approval rates for students from Pakistan and Nigeria, and its decision is to pause all offshore application from those countries. Again, some private institutes have found that most student applications from Pakistan and Nigeria are getting refusal, so they've basically set to pause any application from Pakistan and Nigeria. And this is basically a letter they write to their agent. So you have educational agent that helps students to apply to this institution. So this is basically the letter some of these private institutions are writing to their agents. Unfortunately, due to the significant and recent changes in the way the Australian government are assessing student visa applications, so the institution name has been left with no alternative other than to pause all application from offshore Pakistan and Nigeria. This decision will remain under the constant review pending information and clarity from the Australian Government Department of Home Affairs. Most of these colleges and universities are now scared. They don't want to be penalized. They don't want to lose their level. So if you are living offshore and you're not from any of these countries, they're not going to process your application. And also, some have also noticed that students from Pakistan and Nigeria are getting a high refusal rate, so they've also paused on that, and they have basically sent this letter to their student agents that are helping students to migrate to Australia. So again, I'm not going to read all this, but what this is basically saying is the refusal rate of student visas in Australia has risen by 20%, and this has scared a lot of the colleges and universities in Australia, because again, this is like a huge industry for them. So if they are now pausing on accepting student application from certain countries, then they are going to lose a lot of money, because I know this is going to have like a hard financial impact on this universities, colleges, and also on most of these educational agents. This is really sad. But why is this happening? So I have another article from the visa requirement.world. So it basically states there are 5 common reasons for rejection. I know the main reason is them introducing the new GST, okay, genuine student test, and also Department of Home Affairs is basically trying to cut down the number of migrants that wants to come to Australia. That is why they are basically giving out strict rules in regards to approval or granting visas to Australia. But this website also states that the 5 common reasons for rejections are: 1, insufficient financial proof. So you need to prove that you'll be able to pay for your uni fees, and also you need to prove that you have enough money to live comfortably in Australia. If you're not able to prove that, then of course they'll know that you're not a genuine student. You are basically coming here not to focus on study but to also work. So when they say this, they are going to reject your visa. The other point is inadequate English proficiency. They've now risen the level of the IELTS score, so you need to make sure you score high in IELTS, else your visa is not going to be granted. Gaps in immigration history. I want to read this. If there are significant unexplained gaps in your immigration history, or if you've previously overstayed a visa in Australia or another country, it could negatively impact your application. So if in case you travel to Australia and you overstayed, or you have any bad history in regards to you overstaying a particular country, then this is going to affect your visa. That basically makes sense. The other one too is failure to meet health and character requirements. Australia requires all visa applicants to meet certain health and character requirements. If you fail the health examination or have a problematic criminal history, your visa application may be rejected. This also makes sense, and this is also really important. It's incomplete or incorrect application. So if you don't fill out your visa application properly, you are going to get a visa refusal. And there you go, guys. So if you have plans on migrating to Australia to study, then make sure all your documentations and everything is on point. Again, if you need assistance in regards to your student visa application, just send me an email. I'm going to leave my email in the description section below. Just send me a message on my email and I'll be ready to guide you guys through the process. Student visa refusal are really high now, so make sure your student visa application is on point before submitting to the Home and Affairs. My name is Kwame. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye bye.